This place isn't for losers. That's what my mom told me flat out 3 days before Thanksgiving, like I was some stranger who didn't belong at my own family table. The reason? My little sister was bringing her boyfriend home to meet everyone, and apparently, my job fixing 18-wheelers and getting grease under my nails was too low class for the occasion. He's from a well-off family, Mom said, and Lily wants everything to go perfectly. You understand, right? I just nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't tell them that I'd already bought a scarf for Mom and a watch for Dad, or that I'd rearranged my work shifts to be there on time. I simply said, I understand. But 5 days later, they showed up on my doorstep panicked after finding out the truth about Lily's boyfriend. And about me. I had just come home from a 12-hour shift at the shop, hands still stained with oil, when I decided to call Mom. I wanted to ask what time dinner would start on Thursday, if I should bring my usual green bean casserole, or maybe finally try making that bourbon pecan pie from Grandma's old recipe. But the second Mom picked up, I knew something was off. Erin, honey, she said slowly, her voice overly cautious, like she was walking a tightrope. This year, things are a little different. I froze, still standing in the hallway with my boots half off. What do you mean? I asked. There was a pause on the line so long I thought the call had dropped. Well, she finally continued, Lily's bringing her boyfriend home for the first time. He's very successful, went to Harvard, works in venture capital, and she wants everything to go perfectly. I stayed silent. Mom hesitated, then delivered the final blow. She's a little worried your presence might feel out of place. You know, your job, your style. My style? She meant the flannel shirts, the ponytail, the hands that, no matter how hard I scrub, always seem to carry the scent of engine oil. Lily just wants to make a good impression, she added quickly. You understand, right? I could have told her that I'd already bought her a scarf woven from alpaca wool, imported from Vermont. That I'd special ordered a watch engraved with, "For Dad, thanks for teaching me to fix everything," because even if we didn't talk much anymore, I remembered. I could have reminded her that I'd covered Lily's rent that one year she couldn't find work, no questions asked. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I closed my eyes and said, I understand. Then I hung up. I stood there in the hallway of my little house for what felt like hours. The floor creaked beneath me. A draft came through the windows I still hadn't caulked. Outside, snow had just started to fall. I walked into the kitchen, set the wrapped gifts on the table, and sat down in silence. The phone didn't ring again. Thanksgiving morning arrived with a soft hush of snow blanketing the rooftops and trucks outside. The whole world felt still, like it was holding its breath, but my house was quieter than ever. No sound of football on the TV. No scent of roasting turkey. No clatter of dishes or arguments over how long to bake the pie. Just silence. I stayed in bed longer than usual, staring at the ceiling. Around 9 a.m., I finally got up, threw on a hoodie, and made myself a simple breakfast: 2 eggs and toast. The scarf I bought for Mom still sat in its white gift bag on the kitchen table. I didn't touch it. Around noon, I packed my toolbox, drove across town, and stopped at Mrs. Halpern's house. She was a retired teacher I'd helped a few times before with her old pickup and busted water heater. 2 days ago, she left me a voicemail saying her garage door opener was stuck again. She answered the door wrapped in a thick cardigan, her eyes lighting up like I was the only visitor she expected that day. You're working on Thanksgiving? She asked gently. I shrugged. Better than sitting around doing nothing. She gave me a knowing look and just said, Coffee's on the table. Fixing her garage opener only took 40 minutes. I stayed a little longer though, helped her carry in firewood, changed the batteries in her smoke detector, listened to her talk about her late husband, who always carved the turkey with too much flair. Before I left, she handed me a slice of pumpkin pie wrapped in foil. In case you forget how good home can still taste. Driving home that evening, I passed by my parents' street. All the lights were on in their house. I could make out figures through the front window: laughter, silhouettes holding wine glasses, the golden halo of celebration. I didn't stop. Back in my place, I lit a fire in the small stove, curled up in a chair, and stared at the pie Mrs. Halpern gave me. It wasn't the one I'd grown up eating. It didn't come with whipped cream or a crowded dining room. But it was warm. And it was enough. For the first time in years, I had no one to impress, no one to disappoint, just me, and the quiet. And strangely, I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. I used to think there was something wrong with me, like I'd missed a memo everyone else got about how to belong. Growing up, our house wasn't rich, but it was tidy, proper, image-conscious. My mom, Ellen, was the type who ironed pillowcases and served lemonade in mason jars with matching straws. Dad, Mark, worked in city planning, quiet but proud. And Lily, my younger sister, was always the golden child. She was born with soft curls, a perfect smile, and a gift for performance. Dance recitals, speech tournaments, the school news anchor. She floated through everything like it was choreographed. I was the opposite, loud when I was supposed to be quiet, stubborn when I should have smiled. While Lily went to prom in a white stretch limo, I was under my first car changing brake pads with a flashlight in my mouth. She went to college for public relations, ended up on morning TV in Denver for a while, then came back home when that fizzled. Still, in my parents' eyes, she sparkled. When I said I wanted to go to trade school to become a diesel mechanic, Mom pursed her lips like I'd just said I was joining a circus. "Erin, you're too smart for that," she said. "Why not something more respectable?" I remember that word, respectable. It came up a lot. When I landed my first job working at a trucking depot, Dad didn't say, "Congratulations." He just asked, "Is that safe for a girl?" No one came to see the first shop I managed. No one asked how many certifications I earned, or how many trucks I'd rebuilt from the chassis up. But they watched Lily's news clips on repeat, sent her social media posts around the family group chat with emojis and hearts. I never resented her for it, not really. She just fit into the world they wanted to see. I didn't. Still, I tried. Every year on Mother's Day, I showed up with fresh lilies. I fixed Dad's lawnmower without being asked. When Lily's apartment flooded last winter and she couldn't make rent, I wired her 200 and never brought it up again. And yet, at the first sign of discomfort off perceived embarrassment, they cut me out. Not even a conversation. Not a defense. Just, "She doesn't want you there." It didn't break me, but it confirmed something I'd known for a long time. I was family by birth, not by belonging. So I stopped waiting for a seat at their table and started building my own. People see the oil stains on my overalls and assume that's the whole story. But there's more under the hood than anyone knows. It started when I was 22. I had just finished my second year working at the depot, living paycheck to paycheck and wondering if this was all life had in store. One night, while replacing a radiator on an old Kenworth, the shop radio was playing some late-night finance podcast, something about compound interest and index funds. I didn't understand a word of it, but it stuck with me. Later that week, I wandered into the public library and picked up a book called The Simple Path to Wealth. I read it cover to cover in 2 days. Then I read 5 more. I opened my first brokerage account at 23 with just $700. I skipped new boots that winter to put $300 more into a Vanguard index fund. The next month, I bought 1 share of a freight company I'd worked with. It felt like claiming a piece of the world that used to ignore me. The habit grew. I started waking up at 5 a.m. to read finance blogs before my shift. I tracked dividends, reinvested everything. I picked up side jobs on the weekends, not for spending money, but for investing. I bought my house at 28. It was a wreck, peeling paint, cracked pipes, broken furnace. But I fixed every inch myself. Every dollar I saved on contractors went straight into my portfolio. I never talked about it. Not because I was ashamed, but because I knew what would happen the second the numbers came out. The story would change who I was, but how they looked at me. So I kept my net worth private. Not even my best friend Jada knew the full amount. As of last month, my investment account passed $1.3 million. It doesn't make me special. I'm not flashy. I still buy my tools secondhand and wear the same jacket I had 5 years ago. My pickup has 220, 0 miles on it, and no interest in quitting. But what I've built? I built on my own, quietly, brick by brick. Sometimes, I wonder if I kept it a secret out of pride or protection. Because if they didn't respect me when I was just Aaron the mechanic, they didn't deserve to know Aaron the investor. Let them think I'm the loser. They've never met the woman behind the steel-toed boots. It was 5 days after Thanksgiving. I was in my garage, halfway under a flatbed truck, replacing its starter motor, grease-coating my forearms, when I heard a car pull up outside, then doors slamming shut. I wiped my hands on a rag, stepped out into the cold December air, and froze. There, standing in my driveway, like ghosts summoned by shame, were my parents and Lily. Dad looked stiff in his pressed coat. Mom held a tin of cranberry muffins like it was a peace treaty, and Lily looked furious. "Aaron?" Mom called, voice overly cheerful. "We thought we'd drop by. Check in on you." I crossed my arms and leaned against the garage door frame. "Check in? After kicking me out of Thanksgiving?" Lily stepped forward, eyes blazing. "You should have told me, Aaron." I blinked. "Told you what?" "That Evan used to work for you." I stared at her, stunned. Evan? Her boyfriend? The one I wasn't allowed to meet because I was too blue-collar? "I didn't know it was the same Evan until yesterday," she snapped. "He came over for dinner again. My nail polish chipped, and I joked about it being from peeling shipping label sand. He laughed and said, 'You'd never survive a shift with your sister.'" My chest tightened. "He told us everything," she continued, arms crossed. "About how you gave him his first real shot in the shop. How you trained him from scratch. How you stopped your boss from firing him after he totaled that client's axle. He said he wouldn't even have a career without you." Mom's face was pale now. Dad rubbed the back of his neck. "Then," Lily said, voice trembling, "he told us about your investments. About how you taught him the difference between gambling on meme stocks and building long-term wealth. How you showed him your spreadsheets, Aaron." She was shouting now. "He said you have over $1 million tucked away, and you never told any of us?" I let the silence hang in the air, like the fog of engine smoke. "No," I said finally. "I didn't." Mom stepped forward, voice small. "We had no idea, honey." I looked at her, then at Lily. Would it have mattered? Would I have been invited if Evan hadn't said something? They didn't answer. Dad cleared his throat. "It's not about the money, Aaron." I laughed. "Isn't it?" Lily's eyes shimmered not with tears, but humiliation. "You made me look stupid in front of him." That cut deeper than I expected. "I didn't make you do anything," I said flatly. "You chose to be ashamed of me before you even knew me." Mom looked down at the tin in her hands, then back up. "We came to apologize, and we wanted to talk." She glanced nervously at Lily. "Evan's starting a business, something with auto parts distribution. He thinks you two should meet again. Maybe work together. Combine your strengths." There it was, the shift, the real reason. Not guilt, not love. Opportunity. I exhaled sharply and stepped back into the garage. "You came to apologize," I said, "but you brought a pitch." Lily's face hardened. "It's called building something, Aaron. You should understand that." "I do," I said. "That's why I built it without you." Then I turned, walked inside, and left them standing in the cold. I didn't sleep much that night. Even after they left, the tension hung in the air like burnt rubber. I sat at my kitchen table, the tin of cranberry muffins untouched. Outside, the frost began to gather on the windows. Around 10 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. Lily. I almost let it ring out, but curiosity won. "Hey," she said softly when I answered. "Look, yesterday was a mess, but I want to start over." I stayed quiet. "I talked to Evan," she continued, "and he really thinks this business idea could work with you on board." "Because of my money," I said flatly. "Because of your experience," she corrected quickly. "And sure, okay, the capital helps too. But he respects you, Aaron. He sees what I didn't. There was a pause. I know we've never been close, she said. But maybe this is a chance to change that. To build something, as sisters. Something in me tightened. For years, I'd wished Lily would see me, not as the messy, grease-streaked disappointment, but as someone with worth. And now, she was offering me inclusion. A seat at the table I'd been locked out of. But only now. Only after the truth came out. Lily, I said slowly, do you even know what I do each day? She hesitated. You fix trucks. I diagnose electrical failures in vehicles weighing over 10 tons. I recalibrate diesel emission systems. I manage a crew of 7, and I still crawl under rigs myself when it matters. Silence. I've built something, I continued, voice low. Not just a portfolio. A life. A business. A home. I know, she whispered. That's why this matters. I stood by the window, looking out over the snow-covered yard. If I had said yes yesterday before you knew about Evan, before the money, would I have been welcome at Thanksgiving? No, she admitted. I was embarrassed. And now? She didn't answer. Let me be clear, I said, voice sharper. I'm not interested in buying my way into acceptance. If you want to rebuild something real with me, it won't start with a business deal. Aaron, she said, frustrated, don't throw away an opportunity because of pride. This isn't pride, I replied. This is boundaries. Then I ended the call. For a long time, I stood in the stillness, listening to the hum of the old fridge and the creak of the furnace warming up again. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad anymore. Just done. And that, somehow, felt like peace. 2 days after Lily's call, Mom and Dad showed up again. No warning, just the crunch of tires on snow and the sound of knuckles on my front door. I opened it slowly, wiping grease off my hands with a shop towel. Mom was bundled in her red wool coat. Dad held his hands in his jacket pockets, rocking on his heels like he didn't want to be there. Hi, sweetheart, Mom said softly. Can we come in? I let them in. Not because I was ready, but because I was finally ready to finish it. We sat in the living room. Same old couch, same lamp with the crooked shade. The scarf I bought her still sat in its untouched gift bag on the table. She noticed it, but didn't say anything. I want to start over, she said. We made a mistake, Aaron. A big one. Yeah, I replied quietly. You did. Dad cleared his throat. We were wrong to exclude you. We didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't mean to? I asked, meeting his eyes. You told me Thanksgiving wasn't for losers. You just didn't think I'd push back. They looked down. I want to be clear, I said. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to be convinced. Mom looked up. We're not here for money, I swear. Then why now? I interrupted. Why only after you found out what I've built? Dad stepped in. We didn't know, Aaron. We didn't understand. And if Evan never said a word, I asked, would you be sitting here? Silence. I leaned forward, voice steady. I'm not ashamed of my work. I never have been. The only thing I regret is letting your silence shrink me for so long. Mom's eyes glistened. We were trying to protect Lily's moment. We didn't mean to erase yours. But you did, I said. And I've spent years giving, forgiving, and waiting to be enough for you. I looked between them. This is where that ends. They both froze. I'm not cutting you off, I added. But I'm done begging to belong. I'm done performing for a place at the table. Dad sighed heavily. So what happens now? I stood, walked to the door, and opened it slowly. What happens now, I said, is that you decide whether you can love me for who I am, not who you wish I'd been. But you do it from the other side of this door. Mom stood but didn't move. Her mouth trembled like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. I didn't fill the silence for her. For once, I let it speak. And after a long moment, they stepped outside. I closed the door behind them, gently. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. It's been almost a year since that door closed. I haven't heard much from my parents since then. A few holiday texts, A birthday card with just a signature row message. Lily called once, a month later. Said Evan had left the startup. Said she wasn't sure what to do next. I wished her well, I meant it, but I didn't invite her back in. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was just free. In the months that followed, something surprising happened. People started finding their way to me, not the ones who had once ignored me, but new ones, real ones. Young women from my old trade school reached out, asking how I built my portfolio. A local community center invited me to speak at a financial literacy workshop. I started saying yes. Not because I needed validation, but because I finally had something I wanted to give. Proof that you don't need to be polished to be powerful, that you can build wealth with a wrench in your hand and motor oil under your nails. One day, after a session at the community garage, I found a note tucked under my windshield. It said, "Thanks for showing me that worth isn't something you need to prove, it's something you carry." I sat in my truck for a long time holding that note. Later that evening, I stood in my backyard, watching the apple trees I planted begin to bud. I'd always wanted a yard like this, not big, not fancy, just mine. The kind of space where things could grow honestly. Jadamy, best friend since forever, pulled up in her beat-up Jeep with 2 coffees and a stack of donuts. "You working again?" she teased. "Always," I smirked, brushing sawdust off my sleeves. We sat on the porch, sipping coffee as the sun dipped low behind the rooftops. "You ever think about going back?" she asked gently. I didn't have to ask what she meant. "No," I said. "Not unless they see me without the $1 million. She nodded. "They probably won't." "I know." I looked at her, this person who never once made me feel small, who saw me in overalls and steel-toed boots and thought, "That's strength, not that's failure." "You know what?" I said, smiling. "I finally feel like I'm not trying to fix the wrong engine anymore." Jada laughed, tossing a donut hole in my direction. That's the most mechanic way I've ever heard someone say, "I found peace." But she wasn't wrong. I wasn't fixing them anymore. I was building me. Not the version my parents wanted, or the one Lily could parade around, but the kind that could sleep easy at night, the kind who chose integrity over invitation. As the stars blinked into the sky, I whispered something I hadn't dared say aloud until that moment. I am not a loser. And this time, no one needed to tell me otherwise.